Violated, pressured, extorted, torn fractures, split, smashed, divided, shattered, penetrated, battered, lacerated fragments, forced, crushed, and cracked backwards. And I haven't severed the surface. If you think I'm lying, ask her, or her, or her or him, or 27 million more on this earth, or ask me. Who started to believe in evolution with all of this monkey see, monkey do, or monkey don't rather. So many thoughts in my mind have been gathered, and I came to two conclusions: monkeys and actors that pretend to hear no evil, see no evil, and speaking like there's no evil. The terror of a precious child with innocent eyes, knees that have never been scraped, whose life has never seen a dark sky, small feet and blameless hands, yanked out of her environment to be forced to perform incomprehensible lewd acts, is something you've probably downplayed and would never understand. So what ran through my mind the first time? Well, I didn't exactly know the temperature, but it was so hot that I knew the weather had a fever when all of a sudden I heard thunder that sounded like the sky was coughing and clouds began to leak thick rain like runny noses. And after being up throughout the chills of the dark night, it dawned on me just how sick this world really is. Can you not hear my desperate, crippled cries from multiple men forcing themselves inside, infecting the walls of my human being? I was trained on the proper way to say hi to men, never knowing that it would lead to the rupturing of my high men and dislocated premature hips. I'd see men, then see men would see me. Grown men who have their own insecurities and have trouble sociologically fitting in, so we become the nightly frustration release of square pegs shoving themselves into our round holes. Some of us might as well have held up cardboard signs that read fellatio for food. My mind reflects, but hates to recollect. Such an aggravated gag reflex. My mind reflects, but hates to recollect. It hates to recollect when it looks like scissors cause these anal fissures. See, I was just a little girl that simply wanted to play. But you can't press pause when you're enslaved. Oh, how I wish I could rewind the time, but fast forward to now, where the song at the top of the Billboard chart of my weak heart is Help. A song that sounds familiar, because it's a remake of a song you've ignored for ages. Why? Because stop is the only button you claim to know. You know that green means go. Why? When all your life you slow down for yellow lights. Why haven't you chosen to stop and do something when there are red light districts everywhere? Why? So bumper to bumper with excuses that humanity has grown comfortable with sitting in trafficking. Can you not hear my desperate, crippled cries from multiple men forcing themselves inside, infecting the walls of my psychological being? Only a fool would think slavery was ever abolished. That piece of paper was nothing but a distraction many fell for to keep you from standing up and fighting for what's right. It takes more than a piece of paper to emancipate a mentality. Who needs a ship when it's the minds that are captive? Who needs chains when you depend on others to be the change? Who needs whips? See, I didn't have a choice, but you're willingly enslaved. The fastest growing, demoralizing, dehumanizing criminal monster in the world, but a beast can't survive without being fed. Why depend on governments to stop something when they financially benefit? And as Congress stalls on trafficking bills, every minute that's another 2 rapes. Pimped out, premeditated politics perpetually played. Cops have been bribed, police have been paid off, so these pearls are casted amongst dirty pigs. Yes, this is graphic. But if you've ever literally been pissed on, you too might be pissed off. See, I suffer with insomnia. When it's over for him, it's not over for me. And even with bleach, those images are stained in my mind. Those images are still stained on the backs of the lids of my eyes. By the way, it hurts. Like a train at its highest speed, trying to make it through a mouse hole. It hurts. This pain doesn't lessen with each new day, but nothing hurts more than you turning your head the other way. I am not a checkmark. Do not reduce me to a mere recent or latest cause. Even Constantine the Great was issuing decrees to stop child sex trafficking circa 325 AD. But let's be honest, for some of you, this is not your problem to solve, and giving monetarily is much easier than actually having to get involved. See, maybe you don't understand what it's like to be a little girl in Africa who has been forced to have sex at such an early age so many times that it's resulted in them developing fistulas, no longer physically able to hold urine or stop feces from dripping down her legs. The one who everyone now rejects, ostracized because she's now viewed as one who has a defect. And maybe you can't fathom being abducted and drugged in Moldova, or being sold by your family for an appliance in Cambodia. Or maybe you've never thought about that little Filipina who's contracted AIDS and now has developed genophobia. And maybe you can't perceive what it's like in Amsterdam for women to pretend that this is how she chooses to make a living. She believes she has no choice. Brothels are legal, so she's literally getting worked and puts in overtime because authorities only consider the voices of mimes when it comes to speaking out against organized crime. Or maybe where you live, you're distracted with decisions as to whether or not you agree to injections that are lethal. Looking down on other countries except Los Estados Unidos, where the skill has quietly and tactfully been mastered. Yes, trafficking is happening right here in the U.S. See, the list and the countries go on and on and on. Can you not hear my desperate, crippled cries from multiple men forcing themselves inside, attempting to infect the walls of my spiritual being? Beaten till I was bruised and able to see my open face for not agreeing to quote-unquote cooperate. Empty bottle of Corona beat me into a coma, but somehow his blood bled all over the pain and shame of my brain. Call it a spiritual hematoma. Then I exploded with his light. Call it a spiritual supernova. They touched my mind, they touched my body, but they couldn't touch my soul. But there are millions upon millions who have completely lost hope. What is the life expectancy of someone who has no life expectancy? Repetitive rape resulted unwanted pregnancies. If we are supposed to love with the love of Christ, how did your child's life become more valuable than mine? No, I'm not your daughter, but at this rate, one day I might be. So imagine what it's like to frantically yell for help in the middle of the street where everyone refuses to even look at you. This can't be what it means to turn the other cheek. And a lot of the forerunners of any relief is from those we would label sinners. But they are the ones with uneasy consciences that have honorable laws written on their hearts. Even this is an act of God through his sovereign will. While members of the body live in fear of falling victim to this extreme atrocity, scared for your own lives as though you weren't promised an eternity. They do more fighting against sex trafficking based on their basic moral values, while many supposed renewed image bearers of him argue and debate whether it's a sin or not to have a tattoo. Look at me. Please listen to me. We are products of exploited vulnerability. And maybe it's not your sister, your niece, or even your mother. But is this what it will take for you to help others? If only you didn't keep your jars of personal quota-reached good deeds on a displayed shelf, you'd actually see the emptiness that has many mentally behind bars like jail cells. Maybe if you didn't have exhibitions for all to see how you follow his commands, maybe one of the most important wouldn't have slipped your mind or slipped right through your hands. This is what one would describe as an epic fail. We don't live next door, but we are still your neighbors. If only you loved us like you love yourself. The numbers will not drop. This problem is not going to go away. For long lives evil desire. Take the convenient earplugs out of your ears and listen. They're still crying. There are discouraged eyes staring off into the distance that daydream that you are coming. Will that remain a hopeless dream? Or are we actually going to do something?